Whoa, I think it's recording. Alright, let's see, the subject is what? Addiction. Oof, yuck. Yeah, that's the game. That's all there is, right? We need things. Need is want, desire. Want and desire, those are big ones. Some of these addictions, needs, are pretty biological. Food, especially, obvious. Air. Yeah, gotta keep that stuff. If we don't get it, we get uncomfortable. We end up with uncomfortable sensations if we don't get what we need, or desire, or want. Want being the mushiest of the bunch. You can, want to be a millionaire. Won't, really kill you if you ain't one. You won't usually be sitting around all day going, I gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it, It just lingers in there, creates a discomfort if you don't have what you want, if you have some unsatisfied ambition. But they're all addictions. I mean, we can play with this word, but it really doesn't. All these words are invented to describe something, and I think it's sensible to put all desire in a category, and then to use adjectives, use other language to describe what kind of addiction it is. Whether it's something native, biological, something of the chemistry, or something of the psychology, the conditioning, or even of the perceptual adornment, estrangement that we put on top of things. We make things more than they are, based on color. Color can mean something to us and make something more endearing, or we can become more attached to it because it has a name on it or something. And this is another form of attachment. The way we define what we need to be, need to have control over, need to know that something is okay. So all other extensions of our capacity to attach to things, to attach to ideas of what it is, what state it's in. But it's all the same force. It's all the same mechanism that compels. It's a compulsion. We're driven. We're motivated. And the motivation is basically basic, in that if you don't get it, like food, you'll be uncomfortable. If you don't have the thing that you want, or the things that you want. And it's the discomfort that motivates us, that compels us. If we didn't really pay any psychological price, if the want just came inside of us and said, I want, and you just laughed at it and said, well, so what? I don't need it. I'm doing perfectly fine without it. It wouldn't mean anything. Wouldn't have any power. So it's got to have some power over our self-esteem, our self-perception, or some power to make us feel, to drive us into a perception that is unsettling and disquieting and discomforting to the notion or perception of everything's okay that we need. Lately I've been driven by a perception that everything is not okay. I'm unsettled and uncomfortable because there's lingering uncertainties and doubts and crap lingering in my world. And those things are irritants, and in a sense I need them resolved to gain comfort where I can just say, okay, now we can try to work from this new foundation where we don't have this irritant. But that's sort of the catch of it, is even when we get what we want, there seems to always be some new thing, some more stuff of lesser or greater urgency that will come into the environment and create a new problem in need of resolution. Need. So the word really is tied to this idea of needing something. And we need something because without it we are less comfortable. Simple, I think. But the need can be crude, biological, socially conditioned, emotional, or abstract, perceived through the fact that we paint a narrative on the world, that we know we paint a future, a story, images of what will be. And those images can disturb us enough to say we need to fix something now to prevent the will be. Alright, so getting to the subject, which is, alright, this is the mechanism that runs our biology. This is the obvious motivator in a kind of a dual brain system where one part of us creates the initial reaction to the world, which is a feeling, and the other part of us reacts to the feeling state we are in and suggests ways of fixing it. The threat is identified and we attempt to eliminate the threat, so to speak. That's the basic mechanism, the basic motivator. So yeah, our strongest desires are, obviously we need this oxygen exchange thing to take place to do our metabolism. We need energy, we need to consume the food, and then for the purpose of the replication, the purpose of the DNA molecules, reason to contrive this whole beast in the first place is this idea of this replicating in a nurturing environment where you can control it enough to make sure the copies survive, that you don't waste energy producing copies that won't survive. All of that nuance ends up being part of this emotional character that we have, and so we have feelings that compel us to involve ourselves in relationships, and we bargain and exchange for the pleasures derived through that exchange. and the different parties have different biological incentives, drives, contingent on what their native purpose was for 4 billion years of their evolution. Females tend to be focused on the objective of the replication in the sense that they are the producers of the fetus, the growing thing that will need nurturing and care, and males are more directed towards their attainment of the prize of being the contributor to the DNA product that will be nurtured by the female. And they have a psychology that over time, no doubt it was advantageous for males to have attachments to the woman who produces their children at minimum, and probably their children also, and to become protective and self-sacrificing in some sense. It's kind of a narrow psychology that we can see that fits into. Men like to crash and burn. They don't like to take out the garbage. It's that kind of thing. They like a good fight. They don't like chores. So it's sort of a different, women have to deal with the chores, and men have to deal with more likely in the environmental circumstance where they would be, jump in front of the bear kind of thing. But anyway, we are quite distant from that biological reality. We're not living in the dark anymore, in the cold brutality of nature. And so to some extent we've conformed biologically, but not much, probably. And most of the changing has taken place in terms of molding our psychology, conditioning us through culture and traditions to mold us psychologically into needing what is healthy for the community. And then intellectually we can certainly understand the role we play, and we have this ego mechanism where we're not going to like being unliked. Most social animals have a mechanism of dominance, of alpha, of social cohesion that drives them into these psychological patterns that make them good servants to the community Borg DNA modeling society thing. So that's another mechanism playing or preying on our behavior. So anyway, bottom line, getting to the furthest end of the where it reaches. So we, the origins of our addictive psychology, I think, can be easily understood, although they're complexly formed over billions of years. The mechanism that conforms us is kind of obvious in this natural selection competitive environment, where we're basically groups of DNA, of like DNA, fighting for its survival, and our psychology has elements of it that are coherent to those purposes. Even rogue elephants spend some time with the family. But anyway, and there's a social dynamic in all these other species you can see where they have a unique control mechanisms that create enough cohesion that's in the best interest of the survival of the node of DNA. And then, but ultimately what we are is just wanting, and this want is most of it is contrived either by nature or by society, tradition, and bullshit. And we're just driven to want like animals. And the more you know about your own psychology, the more you understand these mechanisms preying on you, obliging you, compelling you, the less power they have to control you, and the more control you have over using your mind, having the higher parts of your intellect create fantasies or helpful delusions that make you feel better about your existence, better about who you are. It's like compensation. You can say, okay, I lost a fight to somebody, but then you could say, but I'm smarter than him and I'll make more money than him, or you'll come up with some rationalization to make yourself feel like you're victorious even though you're overtly in one arena a failure. And we all play some sort of games to maintain our self-esteem and our participation in the hierarchy and in this game of avarice, attempting to be something loved, because, and for what cause? Mostly because, yes, we fear not playing the game. We fear death has tied to it dying, which doesn't make it sound too pleasant. Dying never looks like a good time. And so death is automatically going to be associated with that negative, where in the sense the idea of being dead isn't so frightening if you just think about it in terms of it can't hurt you. It's kind of impossible. Once you're there, it's pretty easy to do. It's not too demanding being dead. And this game that we're caught up in is just that. It's redundant. Organisms have been doing this for a long time, fighting the same struggles to be somebody, to get their thing, to get their stuff, so they can just feel okay. And that's all there is. I feel okay. Yeah, so what? Yeah, it's just a chase of to satisfy needs that are all contrived by nonsense. None of them are rationally created, except needs that would be overtly in the service of reducing harm in the overall world or something. Your janitorial duties as a good living being, to be productive, that kind of high order need, where productivity would be defined by some sort of intelligent understanding of value, not based on cuteness or who winked at you or who has bigger boobs or some other kind of bullshit, but based on some sort of reasoned standard of sentient comfort, and you're going to provide that as a productive organism. So that would, of all the needs you can have, that's the only one that has any true substance or meaning. All the rest of them are superficial, trivial, and contrived by biology. And even these mission-oriented style needs that I'm talking about, being a service, you still have to prey on a sense of ego to create the motivation. You kind of have to personalize the mission and make it an obligation of maintaining your self-esteem or your integrity, your ability to like yourself. All of that has to get tied to it. So anyway, that's probably enough, but yeah, it's an ugly game of false ambition, fake desire, all contrived, all manipulations, by a physical mechanism of reproduction that has molded us through 4 billion years, that has obliged us, built us. We don't see it, but yeah, it has carrots dangling in front of us, and it has sticks inside of us. And our psychology and our biology is conforming us into just a mule who chases his carrot on his stick and fears the whips. That's it. There's nothing grander going on here but a forced march, and we should be smart enough to step beyond that and understand that that's all that's happening. That there's nothing grander here. There's just mechanisms built into us to compel us to play a stupid game, to compete unnecessarily for a meaningless prize. Yeah. Okay then, till next time and such. Trying out this camera feels very warm, which is a good sign. Yeah, like $3 went down.